Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Black Four Horsemen podcast. This is your boy Q coming back with another reaction episode from the WWE show Unreal on Netflix, season 2, episode 4. This episode was entitled Performance Art, which they talk about a lot in this episode. I watched this episode on last night. I have slept and just got off of work on my job. I'm still snowed in, so I've been working from home all day. But of course, couldn't do this during the work hours because they're monitoring my online process. But anyway, so I've slept a little bit, so there may be some things that I forgot, but I have my notes here, so I'll try to run through as best I can. If I missed anything or something that I should have elaborated more about, please leave a comment. Let me know. I can make another video with my thoughts on that. So this episode of WWE Unreal talked a lot about the difference between what we in wrestling fans know as a work and as a shoot. A work being something that is planned and something that is thought out. A shoot being something that is real, that maybe wasn't unplanned, or maybe a wrestler going rogue and doing their own thing when it comes to being a shoot. So, and even Paul Heyman mentioned something about, well, he had a line in there where he said, "Is this a work or is it performance art?" And they kind of focused a little bit of that throughout this episode. So the episode kind of focused on. I always talk about the different characters that they focus on, and they focus mainly on two main characters and a bunch of the women on the roster. For instance, so they talked about the opens up early in the show. They talk about the country music star Jelly Roll and his appearance in WWE. We've seen celebrities kind of interact with WWE in different formats over the years, whether it's a actually participating in the ring, or if it's a backstage segment, or if they just in the audience. We've seen celebrities get involved with WWE a lot over the last few years. So they focused on Jelly Roll's appearance. They also talked about Seth Rollins, which they opened up the show about something that we already know has happened, but I'm gonna talk about that a little later. They focused a lot on Seth Rollins and his plans, and as I mentioned, a bunch of the women on the roster as they built toward the WWE pay-per-view called Evolution, which is the all women's pay-per-view. And this is so we decided to that's how the show was kind of broke down. It was about those characters. So they talked about early on, they talked about Jelly Roll and him being a fan of the business, a fan of wrestling, wanting to participate. But he talks about on the show that his weight, his issues with his weight, and that he had a talk with Triple H and mentioned that when I lose this weight, I'm gonna come back. So it's a very inspirational story where you saw him working out at the Performance Center. You saw him losing that weight because he wanted to perform in the ring. Once Triple H and everybody was satisfied with his journey, his weight loss, and knew that he wanted to do this, he was working out every day down in Orlando at the Performance Center. Even bought a house. They mentioned on the show, bought two houses, one where he could record music in, and one where he could actually just sleep and be by himself when he's done with training. So that all led up to a match that he had at SummerSlam, where he was a tag team partner with Randy Orton. When they talk about the build up to that match, I think it was a Saturday Night's Main Event where it was Randy Orton versus Logan Paul. Eventually, you will end up getting Randy Orton, Jelly Roll versus Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. And on that Saturday Night Main Event, you saw Drew McIntyre Claymore Jelly Roll, put his finisher onto Jelly Roll. So the fact that he could take that bump and take that move, I personally knew that he was ready to step in that ring, and he did. And if you know now, he had a pretty good showing. I believe I think they won the match at SummerSlam. They lost it at Randy lost that match at Saturday Night Main Event, but they ended up winning the match at SummerSlam as a tag team. So we transitioned away from Jelly Roll, and they talk about how they opened the show, where Triple H mentioned the plan to lay out a plan for Seth to be quote unquote injured, and that possibly that injury fooling everybody, and eventually he would cash in his Money in the Bank contract later, which we saw that he won in I think episode 3 of this show. So we all know what happened now, and they say how they laid it out. Only a handful of people knew. You know, of course, Seth Rollins knew. They had to let LA Knight know since he's been in the match with him. I think Bobby Roode, who was the producer of that show, he knew. Um, and just maybe like a couple more people. Like even the ref didn't know. Triple H mentioned that he had to let medical know because they can't fake an injury and then medical go out there thinking it's real and going through the proper steps of trying to heal that whatever the injury is. So they didn't even tell medical. Well, they told medical, so they wouldn't come and run into those issues. But see, this all led to a Saturday night. So this happened at a Saturday night main event match between Seth Rollins and LA Knight. Seth Rollins goes for the move, falls down awkwardly, grabs his knee, and that's the Rouge right there where they think he's hurt. I think back to that time when I watched it happen live. I saw him grab his knee, and I said, "Well, I think he's hurt, but he's not injured," is what I was thinking. I remember telling my friends that, yeah, he might be hurt, but he's not injured. We know now in this show that he wasn't hurt at all. He went through. You saw videos of him walking with crutches, leading to weeks later. A lot of the superstars, again, only those people that knew that it's going to happen in the match, still were the only people that knew about it. I mean, Becky Lynch, of course, Seth's wife, she knew about it, but having to keep that secret, and they was keeping it up until I think top of SummerSlam, where so no this happened. Yeah, this happened in Saturday Night Main Event. Yeah, they kept the illusion going on for a while. I think it was, yeah, it had to be SummerSlam. So, but anyway, he's keeping this injury going. Everybody thinks he's injured. Life goes on. Everybody else competes, and they decide to use that as a motivation to cash in the title. So, the night of SummerSlam, and correct me if I'm wrong. They didn't mention this in the show. You just saw the match where CM Punk had a title match against John. I think it was John. No, I'm talking about. Okay, let me backtrack because they did show this. So they had a match. CM Punk had a match with John Cena for his world title, and they were setting up for CM Punk was going to win, but the cash in when Seth tries to cash in the briefcase. No, this is, let me backtrack. This is before then. So Seth wasn't injured at the time. So yeah, scratch all that. So anyway, this leads to, I believe, I don't know how I have that in my notes. But anyway, okay. So anyway, so as we know, this ultimately, I'm thinking ahead. They did not show this in the show, but we know that it led to Seth cashing in the briefcase. But I'm assuming that's going to happen in episode 5. So this episode shows where Seth is quote unquote injured. Life goes on with the injury. He's like I say, he's walking around with crutches. He's still appearing on different shows. I know he was on the NFL Network show with still in a I guess wrap on his leg, a brace on his leg with crutches on, and we ended at that. They do show a preview of next week's episode, which is I think is where they're going to, where we'll see Seth cashing in that briefcase and fooling everybody with the crutches, but we'll deal with that in the next episode. So I'm gonna wrap up with what they were building to with all the women were the women's Evolution pay-per-view. You saw clips of Naomi, who was the Miss Money in the Bank, and some of the things she had in her briefcase. I remember at the time live when social media was going on, she was showing that she had like a stun gun in there. She had caution tape in there. She had different things that she said she's going to use on Jade in that briefcase. Um, they talk about Bailey, who at WrestleMania was taken out and couldn't get that WrestleMania tag team match with Lara as a partner against the women's tag team champions at the time. But Becky Lynch shows up to be Lara's partner. They end up winning the title, winning the tag titles. Then Becky turns on Lara, and when she turns on, that's when Becky comes back. So then we have with that turn, of course, they lose the tag titles. Becky Lynch, I want to say goes on. I think was she the champion at the time? I believe she was. I think she was. She had won the women's Intercontinental title, so she was defending that title against Lara and Becky, and that's sorry, Lara and Bailey at Evolution at this Evolution pay-per-view. So they showed how that was set up. They also showed where leading into even before the Evolution pay-per-view, they mentioned that Io Sky, and they talked a lot about Io Sky and her background and how much a lot of producers backstage love her. And I think there was a quote in the line where Triple H said, "If I had to start the roster completely over, if you leave me Io Sky, I'll be okay. If he had to get rid of the entire women's division and he can only keep one, if he kept Io Sky, he'll be okay." And I agree with you. Io Sky is a great wrestler. She's a great superstar. She does a lot of high flying moves. She is very. She's also a good in the ring as a technician, right? So Io is definitely a superstar, and I see why they love her backstage and why she gets all the opportunities that she does get. Also in the Evolution pay-per-view, they had a match between Jade Cargill and Naomi with Bianca Belair as the special referee. This is the match because this match happened earlier that day, early in the show. Jade ended up beating Naomi, but the plan was for Naomi to cash in on the Money Bank later on that night. Well, with talking about Io, excuse me, with the reason why they brought up Io had beat Rhea Ripley for the world title earlier that month, or maybe the month before that. So there was a rematch at Evolution. So you had Io defending the women's world title against Rhea Ripley. And it was a great match. It was going back and forth. And it was a great match between those two. And what shocked everybody is Naomi ends up cashing in her briefcase at the end and ends up winning the women's world title at the end of the show. So everybody, all that was planned, and the way they pulled it off and the way they surprised everybody, because you think about it live, we all was expecting Naomi to cash in on Tiffany Stratton, who was the women's champion on SmackDown. Naomi was on that brand with Bianca and with Jade, but she ended up cashing in on Io, and now she's champion, the women's champion on Raw. So the episode ended with that, with how they set all that up. I thought it was a great episode, and I love how they featured the women on there and everything that's involved with them and the highs and lows they have, just like any other superstar. So, but yeah, overall, this episode was good. I know this picture here, I think, got a lot of controversy when it comes to Triple H hugging Io. But you saw later on, I think she hugged Rhea the same way, she with her legs up wrapped around her. So that's just how she expresses her feelings. So, no harm, no foul on that one. So, but yeah, that was episode 4. I know I probably missed a lot again. I'm trying to get these videos out, going off of what I saw last night and based on my notes. So again, appreciate y'all joining on. Look out for episode 5, hopefully tomorrow. Today is Thursday, January 29th. So yeah, tomorrow is Thursday. So because it's Friday, I'm going to the weekend. I'm still snowed in here in Memphis, Tennessee, so I'm not going anywhere. So hopefully I can get episode 5 out soon. So again, thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for listening. Check out look for episode 5 soon. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.